Order! Order in the court! This kangaroo court is now in session. I am Chief Justice Amnazoa, and I alone will be presiding over this trial today. My colleagues are not here at this moment due to a rash of unforeseen blunt force traumatic injuries. I can't imagine what might have caused that. If you're wondering why we don't have a full video transcript for this session, it's because I believe a transparent and accurate representation of government is an obstacle to its proper function. You'll have to settle for this drawing instead. Will the defendant please take the stand? Do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Excellent. I only trust people who promise not to lie to me. Don't like my judgment? Too bad. I don't grant appeals, you won't find a law to impeach me, and I have no term limits. Now let's get this prosecution underway. Normally in this court, I pick a law or number of laws to pillory for their absurdity or immorality. But today I've decided to attack a rule that doesn't actually have any formal legislation directly mandating it. That rule is the American rule. The American rule states that parties to a trial are responsible for their own attorney's fees, which on its face sounds pretty reasonable. After all, lawyership is a service provided by private individuals. If you want a private service, you should pay for it. The insidious nature of this idea, however, lies in what it implies in conjunction with other established norms. You see, one would like to believe they wouldn't need a lawyer were they to find themselves in court. The absence or presence of evidence in either direction of unlawful conduct should be sufficient to determine whether someone is innocent or guilty. Why shouldn't I be able to feel secure in my ability to attend court knowing that I have good intentions, evidence, and reason on my side? The answer is because the United States legal system is an absolute labyrinth of bureaucratic loopholes, contradictions, absurdities, and authoritarian bullshit. More than enough to make this video into the first of a long-running series. Looking to the official Library of Congress website, we can find this blog article titled, "How Many Federal Laws Are There?" At the reference desk, we are frequently asked to estimate the number of federal laws in force. However, trying to tally this number is nearly impossible. If you think the answer to this question can be found in the volumes of the Statutes at Large, you are partially correct. The Statutes at Large is a compendium that includes all the federal laws passed by the US Congress. However, total count of laws passed does not account for the fact that some laws are completely new, some are passed to amend existing laws, and others completely repeal old laws. Moreover, the set does not include any case law or regulatory provisions that have the force of law. In a conversation about this topic, a friend asked me, what about the United States Code? The current code has 51 titles in multiple volumes. It would be very time-consuming to go page by page to count each federal law, and it also does not include case law or regulatory provisions. In an example of a failed attempt to tally up the number of laws on a specific subject area, in 1982 the Justice Department tried to determine the total number of criminal laws. In a project that lasted 2 years, the department compiled a list of approximately 3,000 criminal offenses. This effort, headed by Ronald Gaynor, a Justice Department official, is considered the most exhaustive attempt to count the number of federal criminal laws. Mr. Gaynor characterized this fruitless project, "You will have died and been resurrected 3 times, and still not have an answer to this question." This is, in short, why lawyers are necessary in practice. The United States of America's catalog of legislation, so arcane, so imperceptibly gargantuan, changing and growing every single year, that literally not even the government itself knows exactly what and how many laws it's enforcing against you at any one time. And remember, this is just a rough count of federal criminal offenses. This does not include state criminal offenses, nor does it include the number of regulations, the breaking of which result in criminal offenses. So, if you want to save yourself the harrowing obstacle course of simply defending yourself in a public court, or even presenting a case against someone who wronged you, it's going to cost you a fat stack of cash. That's right, justice has a price tag. And what a fantastic precedent America has set. Way to show those scumbag fucking redcoats how to run a country, yeah? Let's just bias our entire justice system in favor of wealthy people right out of the gate. That won't backfire in our smug fucking faces. What's that you say? The 6th Amendment entitles you to a public defender? Huh. Thank goodness the almighty and benevolent U.S. government has stepped in to save us from itself. I wonder how that's going.
The Sixth Amendment of the Constitution guarantees every American facing trial the right to a lawyer, even if they cannot afford one. The Supreme Court enshrined that right into law with its landmark 1963 ruling in the case Gideon v. Wainwright. One way society meets that responsibility is with public defenders. But across the country, that system is being stretched to the breaking point, underfunded and overworked.
We've created a counterfeit defense, and it's only the illusion of fairness.
The Public Defender's Office says it's at a tipping point and the outlook is not good.
They want the state to give them public defenders or to give money to appoint lawyers who can represent them in the way that the Constitution demands.
We are dealing with a crisis.
Missouri may well be ground zero, the state's public defender system widely seen as nearly broken.
Most days it's overwhelming.
Over the next 6 weeks, I have some very, very serious trials.
They deserve a lot more attention than I give them.
Mostly all the time.
I think I have 6 murder cases right now.
It's too many for me to be prepared for.
Pretty much if you ask any lawyer in this office, they'd say the same thing.
Do you feel you're able to give them all the time they deserve? I don't know if this is a long answer that you're asking for here. No, is the simple answer.
Here's a question. Who's going to pay for this? As population increases, all other things held constant, crime will also proportionally increase. That means more cases, more trials, and more work for public defenders. Absent additional funding, that means a hard choice between quantity and quality. Try to defend the maximum of people, and innocent people will go to jail, costing the country more money.
Barrett acknowledges that when defenders are handling as many as 200 cases at a time, there's no way they can fulfill their professional and ethical duties to their clients.
You have to go visit with your client. You have to look at the charges that your client faces. You have to investigate the case. You have to meet with witnesses. You have to talk to the police officer. You have to file motions. You have to receive the evidence that the prosecution has and then discuss the evidence with your client. To think that you can do each one of those steps in 150 cases is absolutely ridiculous.
Try to offer a maximum defense, and innocent people will remain in jail, costing the country more money.
In his third year on the job, Snowden works 6 days a week. He's handling around 75 cases, but used to juggle 120, until his boss told attorneys in his office to refuse new cases due to a shortage of funds. 85% of the more than 20,000 cases that move through the New Orleans criminal justice system every year require the help of a public defender. Yet since January, the Public Defender's Office has refused 125 defendants requesting its help and put them on an indefinite waiting list.
It would seem the only alternative to inflicting an injustice and unnecessary cost on society is to spend more money on public defenders, which itself is an injustice and a necessary cost. In the 1963 landmark case of Gideon v. Wainwright, which ruled in favor of extending the Assistance of Counsel Clause from the federal level to the state, Associate Justice Hugo Black inadvertently made what is perhaps the most damning strike against the entire U.S. judicial system.
Any person who is too poor to hire a lawyer cannot be assured a fair trial unless counsel is provided.
Let me restate that to make this perfectly clear. Any person hailed into court who is too poor to hire a lawyer cannot be assured a fair trial unless counsel is provided for him. This is a United States Supreme Court justice outright admitting that without direct intervention, the United States of America cannot promise you a fair trial. We have to invent an entirely new occupation solely to learn, parse, and interpret the monumental clusterfuck of codes, statutes, and regulations we've recklessly implemented just so you have an Ice Cube's chance in hell of not getting summarily butt-fucked before the bench. And that's assuming you can afford it. On top of all of the taxes you already pay, ostensibly to guarantee your right to a speedy trial, your right to due process, and your right to equal protection under the law, you have to hire a fucking attorney. Can't afford one? Well then get fucked, bitch! And God bless America. By the way, the English rule means the loser pays court expenses, so it's the criminals and frivolous litigants that get saddled with the costs after the verdict. That way there's no barrier to file or defend a claim. Most other developed countries already do this, and if our laws were so reduced, simplified, and streamlined so as to permit the average American citizen a reasonable means to represent themselves, then we wouldn't need lawyers, our court system would become hyper-efficient, and literally none of this would be a problem. Thanks for watching! If you know of a stupid law, ordinance, or regulation that you'd like to see me throw the book at, leave a comment, and you might see it in the next random act of government. Until next time, keep that liberty and justice real tight. Thanks for listening. What you value could be anything. And if right and wrong is subject to you, then a subjective morality is nothing if not the world's biggest blank check to commit any atrocity that you could possibly endorse on a whim.
I can't stagger them, I can't resist their damage in any way that I know of. And they give me this fucking... Get off!